in. So now we're good to go. Now and then someone just knocked on the door. Like the timing is just like chef's kiss, right? I'm just going to ignore that. They'll probably knock again, so that's fine. So I thought it was really important, Sherisse, before obviously I kind of pass things over for you to introduce yourself. Which there's so much we can say about you. I know that I can just say a few bits before we start that we love our work that we do with you, Sherisse. Like Sherisse coaches for our staff and our team, which is amazing. So we had a workshop with her to kick off our new season, which was amazing. And it was a really incredible day because there was such a mixture of people there. And everyone came in with a really open mind and a really open heart, and it was really beautiful. And there were little pearls of wisdom that everybody took away from lots of different things. And I know that for me, running a team, having the most incredible women around us and working with us, it was really beautiful because everyone took a little bit of something away, and then you see that shine through in the start of the season. So thank you so much, Sherisse. Yeah, so please do introduce yourself. I feel like I gave you a little glowing intro there. Intro.
Yay. Thank
Yay,
you.
all
Yes.
things.
Well, I love obviously to be praised because that's my Leo self. But yeah, no, I really do appreciate it. And I think that all of the work that I do has come from lived experience. So I think for me to be fully seen and heard now as like an expert in this field is just, a full circle moment for me that I am so grateful for. And to be able to share my wisdom and to support women and girls is fundamentally the reason why I do all of the work I do now. So, for anyone that doesn't know me, my title is Inner Power Activation Leader and Intuitive Healer, which basically means that I activate the power that is already existing within you, and I use my intuitive skills to support me and to support us in doing that for you as well. So basically, I provide a holistic and solution-based approach to mental health and well-being. I had been a professional dancer for 11 years, so movement is something that I am really fond of, really. And I guess I combine that with the other practices, whether it be mental practices, spiritual practices, physical practices. There's a big intersect for me, but the real core reason, obviously, that work is so important is because I'd had such a traumatized childhood myself that I was so unaware of. And it was only until I got to the pandemic that I really faced the weight of what I experienced just, head on. So it was, yeah, it was a very big awakening, but in turn I developed all of the skills that I obviously teach now, which I'm really proud of. And equally, I think that my years of working with women and girls, obviously from being a dancer and dance teacher, everything in my life has combined. So, when we say that there are no mistakes, there really are no mistakes. Like everything in our life shapes us to become the person that we are right now. And I think that in the heaviest and hardest moments of my life, I now, pay homage to that because I know that all of the lessons that I've learned are as a result of that version of me and what she had to endure and go through to become the version that I am now. And actually, a lot of the time in my darkest moments, I look back and I think I actually needed me now then. And that's why it's
Mm,
such a beautiful full circle because none of it is for show or an external thing. Like I am a very shiny person now and I own that space, but for a lot of my life I didn't feel that. So that's why it's really important for me now to completely own the spotlight because I think that all women deserve to feel that way. All people
mm,
deserve to feel that way, but especially women because, we've been oppressed on that extra layer. And for me as well, being a woman of color, that's just an extra layer to all of these things, really, So I guess really my story is testament and of value to a lot of people that are going through difficult times because I've been there, and
mm.
actually the weight of my trauma sometimes outweighs the weight of my healing. And that's something that I have to battle with quite constantly. And I think that's a really beautiful space to be in when you know that the tools you teach are the ones you practice. And I don't know how many other coaches and mentors can say the same.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I mean, I've seen you. We've been friends for many, many years now, right? And I walk proudly by your side every single day. And I'm really proud of the growth you've had as well. And it's been amazing for both of us, right? To be on that journey together,
Mm.
which ebbs and flows and comes back around and this, that, and the other. But so it's really powerful to have you here to obviously speak about something that's really, really important. I know that we've had a conversation on a personal level about what we're going to go into now with me, and I find your advice really valuable. And obviously, working with such a big community of women and girls that we do work with, and children as well, there's a real mix, but I just feel like it's so important because it's not like it's not like it used to be, right? Where you're at school and you're getting bullied and you're getting picked on, and it's all there, but you're around other people, right? So there's always going to be somewhere to kind of bounce things off and someone to go to and somewhere to actually hide. Like I remember once having like an argument. I was never bullied at school, but I had an argument. Her name was Dion. Just to let that out there. I can't remember what her last name was. But I remember hiding in the toilet, right? Because I was a little bit scared. So you actually had physically somewhere to physically hide, slam the door, close the door, back against the door. Dion won't catch me in here. Um, but we don't have that now, do we? Like, we don't have that. We are so contactable, we're so interferable. That's not really a word, but we can't shut off from it, right? So
Yeah.
you're having a bad day, you're feeling the world's against you, and it can still come at you through the means of your phone or a laptop or a screen. And I choose not to have social media personally. It just closes down tabs in my life. I'm quite a private person, but it still got to me. And I was still the victim of some online abuse like a few weeks ago. And I thought, and it really shook me to my center. And obviously, not knowing how to deal with it, I wasn't equipped. And I'm like a woman of 36 years of age, seen a bit of the world. I know bits, got a lot more learning to do. Absolutely shook me. Like, it scared me how much it shook me, actually. And then there was that moment of being like, oh my, this is what the kids are going with that we work with every single day, daily. So this is like once, right? That's to that point. And it scared me. And I was thinking, for someone who would, think they've got certain skills in the toolbox to just then fall apart and be like, I don't know how to deal with that. It's like, right, how can we move forward and maybe just speak about ways that there is like a way of dealing, there isn't a certain way of dealing with it, but how can we equip with some malleable kind of tools within a toolkit that if this does happen, that we can kind of reach for, if that makes sense. I mean, what's your kind of views on that, Sherisse?
Yeah, no, absolutely that. And I think, the first step in all of that is something that you've d done already is be vulnerable and open about it. Because I think that we hide behind these masks and these walls that we're creating. Like social media is another wall that a bully can hide behind, right? That's the term keyboard warrior comes from the fact that that person doesn't want to stand in front of someone and say, I think this about you, but they'll quite happily type away at it. And even at school, I can guarantee you that there's people bullying them online, but actually to their face at school, they probably say nothing. So I
Mm,
think that the first part of this is being honest and vulnerable and speaking up about it. It's not okay. Like there is no acceptance for talking about someone behind their back anyway, right? Let alone if that's physical or, on the internet, whatever you want to call that. So I think that calling it out and being honest about that from the start is a great thing because that takes down one of the walls. Because again,
mm,
we try and protect ourselves by thinking we've got it all figured out. We're not affected by it. I mean, look at how many celebrities take their own life because they can't take that constant, you know, questioning of themselves, all of those things. So for me, vulnerability, like I said, is the first step. The second thing is building true resilience. And that true resilience comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. Because when you know who you are and what you stand for, is where you create this energetic boundary so that no matter what anyone says about you, because you don't believe it to be true, you
mm,
don't then absorb it. But life gets in the way, right? We get tired, we get overwhelmed, and then when we're feeling more vulnerable or more you know, like we're not our strongest self, for example, that's when we're more susceptible to, you know, breathing these things in. If you imagine like a big bubble of protection around you all the time. So when you're feeling your best self, that bubble's nice and strong. But when you are tired or when you are overwhelmed, that bubble starts to get a little bit thinner. So then that means that those hurtful
Mm,
words can come in. But that inner resilience means that there's always a layer around you. So even if it gets into your bubble, there's still a part of you that goes, no, that's not about me. You know, this is something
mm,
that I teach in my program that I'm currently teaching in the schools called Permission to Shine. And it's about knowing your strengths and weaknesses and, you know, the threats and the opportunities, a bit like a SWOT analysis of who you are. But then even more of a deeper layer of that is knowing that, okay, this person is calling me dumb or stupid, for example, but actually I know for a fact that I'm really good at maths or I'm really good at science. So to that person, I might be dumb because I didn't do very well in English, but let me tell you, I'm really good at this thing. So you don't have to say any of that to that person. All you need to do is know that that's in you.
mm,
So then that automatically means that you're not absorbing that. The problem is with the old-fashioned way of schooling and things like that is that we were told that if we weren't good at everything, we were good at nothing. And that's how
mm,
I believed that you know, my existence in school happened. I was really much that goldfish to climb a tree analogy. You know, like I was
mm,
getting judged on written work, and I'd work really hard and just get the passable grades and the C's. And then when it came up to going to university, I got a first. I've got a master's, but at school I was told that I wasn't intelligent. So for me, I always believed I wasn't intelligent because I was always told that. So it's how we can then now look at these little tiny increments of ourselves and get very clear on that. Because then if someone does say to you, for example, you wasn't very good at that. So say it doesn't have to be bullying, it could be a criticism. You're not very good at that. You could say, do you know what? I know I'm not very good at that, but I gave it a try. Isn't that better than not doing it at all? And
mm,
then no one's got anything to say back to that. What can you say back to that as an insult? Oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have done it at all then. What? I never tried and never known. What if I was incredible at it and I could have made a career out of it? You know, there's so many different layers to this
mm,
because a lot of bullies go for a short, sharp win. They don't want to
mm,
be in it all day. They haven't got time for that. Do you know what I mean? So it's
mm,
like how we build up this inner resilience. It's not a one size fits all brush, unfortunately. It takes you getting to know you. That's the most
mm,
important thing because when you know you, you won't accept anything less than the standard you set for yourself. But if your standard for yourself is low, that means that you're going to accept less than what you deserve.
mm,
So it is about building that resilience and that value for yourself ultimately.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that because it is, yeah, it's not nice to hear someone's opinion when you think when it's so far removed from the person that you are. And I think for me as well, it's when there's fabrication or lies that are being said and you can't respond, right? You just take it. You're like, because for me to then respond when it's like you said, if it was someone that did it face to face, there's real courage in that, right? And there's a confrontation and then there's a meeting of two people. But when it's online, it's really cowardly. It's really
Mm,
cowardly. It's like, type away, send. And I think I find that the hardest bit because I think there's no policing, right? You can say whatever you want. And it's whatever you want, and it can be true from that person, whether or not there's an ounce of truth in it or not.
yeah,
And it's difficult, right? Like that is difficult. But like you said, the more that you can build that resilience, that self-resilience up and stand in the integrity, which, I'm sure we all do, stand to a certain age. The older you get, the more that you hope to be able to stand in integrity. But there is that moment of shake, right? When someone calls you something and it hurts, like makes you feel sick because you think, that's not me. And then your mind starts to then jump to one to the next. Well, what about that? And then that, well, they must be thinking that. And it is bringing it back round, right? And stopping and not letting that run away with you. Like our minds can be our best friend or our worst enemy,
yeah,
right? And I just feel like there has to be a point where you go, I know I did. I was like, this needs to stop now, Soph, because this isn't who you are, and it's you're feeling hurt. And now it's running, it's this, that, and the other. So, like you said, it's coming back to self, right? And I
Yeah.
think any bits of, especially like thinking of aiming it towards maybe like teenagers now, Sherisse. It's kind of practices. I know that you're really big on journaling, me too, right? And I know that that's something that is really integral in both of our lives. But for teenagers to really bring them back to like a sense of self, to that groundedness, have you got any tips for that?
Yeah. So I would think about it in an imagery way. So I mean, right now we're talking about, that self, that resilience, all of those things. For me, when I talk about confidence and things like that, I'm talking about a deep-rooted sense of it. So if you think about like an old oak tree and the roots are so deep into the ground, that's how much you know
Mm,
yourself, is you know yourself so deeply. And this is where we need to be focusing inward and not outwardly. There's a in the spiritual community, there's a thing that we call inner stand. So instead of understanding something, you inner stand it. So it's like, how can
mm,
I inner stand myself right now? Because when we're thinking about how someone else feels about us, we're giving our power to them. So what we need to do is call our power back to us.
yeah.
So in compartmentalize it, that means separate it out. So separate the words that they're saying and then identify that. Does that sound like me or does that sound like them? Because this is the thing, right? Everything in our lives is a mirror. So if that person feels that way about you, 9 times out of 10, they feel that way about them. So, just present that mirror back to them. And when you don't respond, bullies hate that. Narcissists hate that. It's just a constant loop of themselves because then they're arguing with themselves. Let
Mm,
them. There's a
mm,
really beautiful set of poems and philosophy about let them. Just let them do it. Let them get on with it. But when we're thinking about us, and that tree, I want you to really think about that for yourself. Like when you're thinking about how other people think about you and all those things, I want you to think about your identity. Who are you? And then you can even draw a tree, and then you on each edge of the tree, you can do hobbies, you can do family, you can do like what you look like, you can do the qualities about yourself that you're good at, and just keep making those roots larger and larger because that's what builds up to who you are. So when you know that all of these roots have their own avenues that they're going down and
mm,
spreading far and wide, that makes your tree even stronger. But until you know that about yourself, you are lost because that's the truth, right? Like I meet so many young girls. The program that I teach is for 11 to 15-year-olds. So this is, that prime age of knowing who they are. And some of the girls don't even know what to write on that list. And I'm like, think deeper. You've been taught to just mill along, to get along with it. I think the internet has taught us to not care with
be
like
a good
American
girl.
sitcoms.
Be a good
Yeah,
girl.
be
Oh
a good
no.
girl, keep
Yeah, be a good
quiet,
girl.
all of those
Be,
things.
yeah, small. Stay
Yeah.
small. Stay small. Be quiet. Yeah,
Yeah,
all of
and
that. All
and
the
I
things.
think for me, I didn't have that option to do that because where I grew up in a volatile home and then faced racism on a daily basis when I was out and about, I never had the option to just be quiet. I had to always use my voice. So for
Mm,
me, if I'm looking at the strengths and weaknesses of my personality when I was 15 years old, I would have said that I was aggressive because I always come across that way. And I was aggressive at that time. I take that and fully own that. But when I dig deeper, I can see that I was aggressive because that was all I was trained to be
mm,
as a protector and as someone that had to care for, my younger sibling and or protect my parent from my other parent. There's so many different layers to this.
mm.
But until you know that about yourself, you will hold that label of what people think you are until you know who you are. And that's why everything comes down to self-awareness. I will sing that. I will probably get that tattooed on my eyebrow one day, self-awareness, because
It'll
that
be
and boundaries.
gorgeous.
Self-awareness, boundaries. And I'll be like, thug life. No,
I see that for you. I see it for you.
yeah, but this is exactly it. There's no
Mm,
crazy formula. There's no like one magic switch. It is literally just you getting to know you. And that is really the core. If you think about an iceberg, for example, everyone sees the shiny exterior of me. Not everyone knows that I've been through so much trauma and hardship and constant battles that I face on a daily basis. Like
mm,
when I say to people about transmuting the dark into light, those dark thoughts are very dominant still in my head, but I've trained them so much so that when they come up, I can quieten them down, or I can say, thank you for bringing that to my attention. You can leave now. Or when it's period time, I have to sit with them a little bit because I don't want to leave, right? So
Mm,
I think that it's a really important process that we learn these core foundations and just always be willing to do that and look inward. I think that there's nothing wrong with just, like you said, stopping for a minute and saying, okay, well, how is this making me feel about me right now? Is that true?
mm,
Do I believe
yeah.
that to be true or not? And it's
Mm,
okay to say no, like it's okay to be like,
yeah.
no, that's not for me.
Absolutely. I think it's about making friends of yourself as well, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
there's that IFS, internal family systems, that I love, which is like we're all made up of different parts, right? And it is really making friends with that and treating yourself how you would like to treat a friend. I think that's really, really important, right?
Yeah.
Um, because it was really funny when I was going through all of, this kicked up for me a few weeks ago, and I had advice from different places, and some of it was business advice, and a lot of it was from friends and family, the way it was feeling. And a business coach who I will work with, she's fantastic. She did say to me, you dealt with it as business Sophie, like Chillenden All Star Sophie. You spoke to the staff and were like, you wanted everyone to be okay and everything else, and made sure everything was tied up in a lovely bow. And she was like, but Sophie, you're still sad about it because you've not dealt with it. And it was like, I'm not being friends with myself there, am I? Because I'm doing all of that and making sure everybody's okay. And then it's like, oh, but I've left that bit behind, kind of thing, really, isn't it?
Mm.
Um, which is really important. Why do you think people bully, Sherisse? Big, huge question. But like, why do you think people bully?
It's because, well, it's two things. It's either learned behavior, so they've watched other people treat their caregivers like that, or their caregivers treated them like that, or they've observed, you know, family members, friends, that it's their first memories of that way of treating people. So, for example, if a child witnessed a domestic abusive relationship, then they would absorb the fact that one person needs to be dominant, the other one isn't. So that's the first step. And then the second thing is, again, liking themselves. If they don't
Mm,
like themselves, then they won't like anyone else. And that's why I always say about the level that self-love, for example, like how deeply you love yourself is how deeply you'll love other people. So if you don't like who you are, you're constantly
mm,
projecting that out into the world. So I think that that's why I said that mirror analogy is that, when someone's saying to you, oh, you're a waste of space or something like that, for example, that's probably because someone's told them that, and
mm,
or the way they've been treated in the world. So this is where, and I hate to say it like this because there's no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse for it. But that is where you have to choose to rise above it or meet someone at that level, right? Because
yeah,
you can either sit with that and be like, you know what, today I choose not to be okay with this. No one deserves to be spoken to like this. And I'm going to tell you, I've been both of these, and there'll
yeah.
be just an inner knowing of what is the right thing to do at the time. So if, for example, I mean, I always used to choose war, by the way. When I was younger, I'd always choose war.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
as an adult now, and I say as an adult, but as someone that's done the
Peace.
healing work, yeah. And you know what is more than that? It's compassion. Because
Mm,
I know wholeheartedly the reason people bully is because it is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. I
mm,
know that deeply. There's no part of us that is designed to hate. That's not
yeah.
in our DNA as humans.
Mm,
We're taught that. We're taught to
mm,
hate. None of us have that in our body. That's why it doesn't feel good. When you've had an argument
mm,
with a friend or a disagreement with someone or even a fight, that doesn't feel good in your body because you're not supposed to feel that way. We're coded for love. We've just got lost along the way. And social media and the internet make it very easy to get lost in that. And that's why I always say it comes back to you. You have to keep coming inward all the time, because the minute you look outwardly for an answer for anything, that's when you get lost, right?
Exactly that, isn't it? It's your view on a situation, because two people's eyes can be very different looking at a situation, and also we touched upon earlier, and your mental state at the time, right? I feel like Yeah, there's a massive common thread in this, right? About really being in your power, really standing in your authentic self and really rising above it. Because we have this innate thing as a human that when someone says something to us, we want to say something back, all right? Because we're impulsive, we're reactive, right? We're reactive beings. That's what we do. There's a
Mm.
threat, we fight, we protect. That's what we do. But there has to be a time where I know this is true for me. I don't want to be in the weeds. I don't want to be in the swamp. And if people are going to start, and it can be swampy, social media can be swampy, right?
Yep, yep.
And it's like one person jumps in, the other person pipes in, someone else pipes in, everyone's piping in. And it's like, you sit back and you think, the minute you say something and you join the swamp, I feel like you get dragged under. I feel like you'll just drown. Do you know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
like it's I just don't think you're ever going to win. I don't believe you're ever going to win in a fight on social media. I think for me, the best advice is nothing, is choose peace, right? Because it's the backwards, it's the forwards. The one thing I found hard about that is there isn't a space to defend. So when you know something's not true and it's false and it's quite slanderous, I struggled with that because I knew that I didn't want to be in the weeds or in the swamp, but I would love to have shown all the evidence of what is true. Does that make sense? But then
Mm.
again, it's like there's a pot and you're stirring it. So what do you do with that? Because that's difficult, right?
Yeah. So in that situation, I would again take it apart. So I think exactly what you're saying, that is swampy. Allow the frogs to live in the swamp and leave them there. But if that gives you, ammunition here to be like, I do want to be clear on how I feel about this situation, then you could use your platform to not even mention what happened there, but to speak about things from your perspective. So
Mm,
this is a big part of my work. I see all the time, these things happening or whatever, even the elections, for example, like I don't have to directly say how I feel about that situation, but I can give another hand to that. So on the day of the elections, when I
yeah.
knew that the energy and people were upset and heightened, I just did a story about the fact that we should choose love. So,
Mm,
that was really important to me to be able to say to people, um, you know, right now is a difficult time. I want you to sit with your feelings, but know that, if we choose love, that love will always come back to us. Can't remember what I quite said in the end now, but basically about not lowering your vibrations, but equally on your part there, I might have done it if that was me and that happened to me. I am someone that I'm a double Leo, as most people know. So I do
mhm.
I do like to end situations, but again, I think that this is all I've ever known, right? So I always make jokes about to people about how I'm a black belt in arguments because I'll just finish it. And for me, I feel like I've adapted this way of being able to shut things down, but that's come from years of being a punch bag, right? The only way you
Mm,
build strength is, I like to think a bit like Rocky Balboa. You got beaten so many times. They're like, what is this guy made of? Iron. And that's literally how I feel about my resilience. So in those situations, if I feel like I want to enter the swamp for one time and just, put a lid on it, I will do that. But that's because I feel like I can and I wanted to in that situation. But equally, you have to know that by saying something like you said, there could be a reaction to that. So it's,
And it's being ready for that, right? It's
yeah,
being
and that's
aware and
it.
ready for that.
And you
Yeah.
you have a choice here. Like, well, I don't want anyone to think that they have to let people talk badly about them, because that's not what we're trying to say here. I want you to know that whatever you choose has to be right for you, and you do have
Mm,
a choice. So how
mm,
you choose to react has to be in alignment with you. Because as I said, like for me, if people started to throw racism in the cards, or something like that, I would have to physically end that, because for me that's always been my trauma, is that it always ended with me. I would never let someone continue to repeat bad language or things like that going further, because I feel like then I'm perpetuating a cycle by not saying anything. So then for
mm,
me, that would be a very clear answer for me to say, no, that stops there because of this, this, and this. And if they continue to go on, I would say this is going to be the only statement I make. So if you want to continue arguing with yourself, please do. I won't be responding. But however, you need to know that that part there was not okay, and nor should you ever add that in again. And then other people would probably chip in anyway. But I'm saying all of this to say that it's your choice. And I
Mm.
think that, I don't want to be that person that gives the advice that don't say anything, because sometimes that feels like you're giving your power away when you're
Yeah,
letting
yeah,
people
yeah.
say that about
It's
you.
making a conscious decision, right? Yeah,
Yeah. But like
yeah.
I said, if you did a separate post that was like, I really do value, myself and my journey and the integrity that I hold. These are all of the years of things that I've put in. Like for me, I use testimonials as like something that I do as like a little bit of evidence. So you could even have done something like that if that felt aligned to you to do it at the time for a reason for that.
I
But
think I think that yeah, I mean the hardest part is though, right, is when there's been it and kind of relaying it back to what we're talking about now with the bullying, and like the online abuse. The hardest thing is when it's been people that have been part of your life and you've got a hardcore attachment to them, and you still think the world, there's for
yeah,
me that's still there. That's never going to leave because that was years of, having them on our program, whether there was scholarship athletes or there was a real, and it's difficult, right? I think one thing that's really sprung to mind then, though, Sherisse, was when you said about a right to choose, like a conscious decision, 100%. I think what my thing would be with that is give it space and then make your decision. So
yeah,
Viktor Frankl, my favorite quote of all time is like between stimulus and response, there's a space, and within that space is
yes,
freedom. I live my life by that, right? Because I'm a very impulsive person. It serves me well in some respects. If there's a holiday to go on, it's happening in 2 hours. But I've learnt in life my reactiveness had to come to an end. Like that had to stop, right? I had to make this space. And that's a really good place to let that just be that space and then make the decision afterwards rather than being reactive. Because I
yeah,
could have seen that and been like, oh my gosh, that's all lies. And I could have went straight
yeah,
away
yeah,
back.
yeah.
And
No,
it's backwards, forwards. And there's no breathing room. So maybe I feel like that is a brilliant tool is to give it the space. Also get other people's opinions, right? I opened up to my parents, a few other people, you, and I was like, this has happened. It's made me feel really, really sad and really bad. And do you know what? That was really powerful to get other people's opinions because I sometimes like to think keep things to myself, right? Because it's happy, it's smiley, we love it, everything's good, and I've got this amazing team and I want to make sure everyone's happy and everyone's good. And that's difficult, right? Because then it's you, sat with you, and all you have is one mind and it's going around. And I feel like every time you share that, a little bit of it becomes a bit lighter.
yeah, definitely. And that is the key to obviously just everything. Like I said at the beginning, the vulnerability piece, you have to be vulnerable. You have to open up about how it makes you feel. But even if you need to say something and you're not ready to say it to a person, write it down,
Yeah,
voice
for
note it
sure.
out, and just don't send it. Like that's
Mm,
another great way. That's a massive tool that I give to my clients is about that, releasing out of the body. Because you
mm,
might find that if you just screamed down your voice note and deleted it afterwards and it went nowhere, that actually you go for a walk and you come back and you're like, I don't even care. So
mm.
it's just finding these tools and practices that
Yeah,
work for you in your body to let go of it. Because this is the thing, if we don't complete that emotional cycle, which you didn't, that's why a couple of weeks later it felt like it was still in the body
still
because it hadn't
heavy.
completed. So
Yeah,
that's why it has to be like vulnerability is almost the first step. Or like a continuous step that happens, right? It's like you're slowly walking round.
yeah.
But if you're not fully accepting it, because I mean, this is my 4 steps is understand what happened, accept it, then you release it, and then from that space you rebuild whatever the new cycle is for
Beautiful.
you.
Yeah,
But there
that's
needs to
that's really
be,
powerful.
yeah,
Yeah.
that part for, and especially like I said at the beginning, like you have to look at it in parts. You can't just look at the whole thing. Like that person said that about me, so that must be true. It's like, no, what did they say and why did they say it? They're angry about the fact they didn't get their own way, and they've bring up some really absurd things to make them look like they're the winner in this situation. Do I believe them? No. Does that make
Mm.
me feel less about myself if actually someone believes that I'm a villain in their story? That shouldn't. So if that does make you feel vulnerable, like you don't want to be a villain in someone else's story, then that's a little degree that there's the people pleasing tendency coming up. So
Interesting.
so then
Yeah.
that's the thing
Yeah.
there. We don't want to look like we're the bad guy, but in real, true, deep-rooted confidence, you have to be okay with people thinking you're the bad guy.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Isn't that really hard?
But this is the
Yes,
thing.
I get it though. It's so powerful. I was like, oh, that's a nerve and it might be hit because that is like when you try and be a good person, then just someone thinks you're like, what's the witch from Snow White with the apple? Like, oh
Yeah,
gosh, that's me. And that really couldn't be further away from who I am. But you're right. It's like, why should that matter? And that is like, oh, there's a bit of, there's a lot of work there, right? When you think,
yeah. But
yeah,
that's the
you've
good
got
girl
to be
thing
okay
still.
with that. Yeah, I know. You've got to be okay with being the villain in someone's story. Maybe if you just fancy dressing it as well, I might just turn up in a cape with an apple
Yeah,
and
I
like a big,
would.
I love a hat. What about a big witch's hat like on the side and
Yeah,
just
do
like,
it.
and I'll just cackle. I like black anyway. We're in autumn season. So, I mean, new look. Maybe I'll really play into that, you
Yeah,
know.
do it. I mean, this is the thing, right? Absolutely
Give
give
it
an
an
alter
alter
ego.
ego.
Because this is the thing,
I
right?
love that.
I talk about this
Yeah.
with the subconscious mind as well. So, like our
Mm,
inner critic is sometimes, like I said, these bullies that we're talking about, that's in their own mind saying to them, you're worthless, you'll never be anything. And in my last workshop that I did, I've still got the link in my bio if anyone wants to watch it. I spoke about giving that alter ego a name. So give it something really hilarious. Like we were
yes.
getting all sorts of names like Gertrude and like
Oh,
all these names to call it. So then you're like, shut up, Gertrude. Because in your head, you're like telling it to be quiet. You're like,
yeah.
no, I don't want to listen to that. So, the people that did bully have been bullied. Whether it be by their parents, their caregivers, siblings, friends, they have been bullied. They're perpetuating the same cycle again. So it's up to you. Do you want to absorb that and repeat it? Or do you want to
Mm,
say it stops with me and create a new narrative?
mm,
And
absolutely, mate.
unfortunately, it's uncomfortable. Change is
Yeah, of
uncomfortable,
course it
but
is. Yeah.
it takes one notion, one thing to say, you know what, I'm not okay with that.
Mm,
And then what you
yeah.
choose to do with not being okay with that is your then forward movement. But it is hard
Absolutely.
at school. I understand it's hard at school because you can't run from anywhere, right? Everyone still knows everyone, everyone's connected from everyone. I mean, even as an adult in friendship groups, right? If you all of a sudden decide that you're not going to be friends with someone, that affects everyone else around you, but you have to
Yeah.
be okay with that choice. Because
Yeah.
what is worse is to not say anything and you to feel uncomfortable every time you're in an interaction with people, and
Mm,
then that just lets off bad vibes. So
yeah.
it's all about choosing you first. And yes, the term is selfish. It absolutely is the term selfish, but what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Society has made us think that that's a bad thing, but it's absolutely
Absolutely.
not.
I totally agree with that, mate. I totally agree with that. And you were saying that before about like the interactions with people and that and that side of things. And what really sprung to mind for me there is what actually made it worse for me is I felt like I kept sticking my finger in the plug socket because
Mm,
I kept looking, I kept
yeah.
looking. I couldn't stop myself. And I was looking at, oh no, I felt a bit more sick and I was looking again and then someone sent me a screenshot and I was like, and the timing was bad. I'd just woken up and usually don't check my phone till I've done a meditation in the morning. And this one day I looked at it and it was just, the timing was just bad. And it was like, and I just kept looking and I just kept feeling worse. And one piece of advice I would give, especially on online bullying, step away from your phone, step away from your phone, like, and look at people that you love because they can fill you with so much more than you will get from your phone. And it's a really slippery slope, right? That's difficult because the more and the more. And if you are in a place where people are snapping, screenshotting, oh, someone said this about you, snapping and sending it to you, you can say to people, don't send me stuff. I've said to my staff, I've said to everybody, if you see anything that's not true, or anything at all, I don't want to see it. Don't send it to me. That's it.
Yeah. Well, there
That's
has
it.
to be boundaries in place, right? In your
There
life as a
has to
whole.
be.
So for me,
Yeah.
my boundary is from the get-go, I won't have people speak to me like crap. That's just a boundary that I have. So whether it be I walk in to do a workshop and the organizer is rude, I would be
Mm,
telling them straight away, don't speak to me like that. because that's just my boundary. And it doesn't have to be an argument. That's just the thing that we set for ourselves, even down to, that process. If I would just voice note everyone and say, look, I really appreciate you all caring about me, but right now, me keep seeing this over and over again isn't healthy. So please
Yeah.
don't send that. But again, this is something that takes trial and error, like everything in life. When these things start to happen, and especially bullying, it is a ripple effect. So unless you stop it in its tracks, it will keep getting louder and louder until you choose to
Mm,
deal with it. So,
mm,
in that situation, I would have left the group for one, and then told everyone about the fact that I didn't want to be in the group. Then I might have written a statement, and then I would have turned off all the commenting. So then no one would be able to contact me about that. And then in turn, that would just be my final word on the
yeah.
situation. But it is like we said, this is resilience. This is word and resilience. The word resilience is your ability to bounce back over and over again. So if this is
Mm,
the first time something like this has happened, you're going to learn from it and build the resilience for the next time. You don't wake up and have resilience. So all these
mm,
people that are saying like, I'm so resilient. I'm like, are you though? Do you actually know what resilience is? Because resilience means that you've fallen down so many times and you've built yourself back up again. That's what true resilience is.
mm,
And there's people that coach in resilience and stuff. You can't teach it until you're in it. There's
yeah.
no other way. It's a bit like, relationship coaching. You can actually go to someone when you're single and get the right advice to how to have a relationship. But until you're in a relationship, guess what?
No.
That's actually not going to do very much. I mean, it does a
Yeah.
lot. It does a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's going to help you with your mindset and all those things.
The
But
tools to begin with, but gosh,
yeah,
yeah, the
until
lessons
you're
you will
in it.
learn. Woo!
And isn't that life as a whole, right? It's all
Mm,
about trial and error. So if you have been bullied or you've been a bullied, it gets to be different. You get to
mm,
change the narrative whenever you choose to, but you have to own your power enough to say, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And in fact, the program that I'm teaching in one of the schools at the moment, one of the girls in there, I know is a bully because I've seen her bully people in the other group.
interesting.
And I
Right.
and I made a point of saying, I don't care how you've been acting up until this point.
Mm,
I'm not here to judge you at all. Not one part of me is here to judge you, but what am here to do is to change your mindset going forward. And this has just been week one for this new cohort of girls, but already it just shifts, just something. There's a little dial in
yeah.
that shifts, and that's the same with all of us, right? We're always just tightening that
Mm.
notch of growth and understanding.
Absolutely. And how powerful and amazing for those young women that you're working with, Sherisse. They are so lucky, honestly. Like I said this to my junior coaches that came to when we had our workshop day to kick off our season with you. And I said to them, oh my, I wish I was 15, 16 with a woman like you in front of me. I was like, because, I mean, and we all loved it. We really did. But for them, and it was funny because there's little things that I've seen in them, which has been a real reflection. And I just feel like to have more of you, can't clone you. There's the one and only. We can't clone you. There's only one. But to do that really powerful work, to go into the schools, and like you said, you saw one of them's a bully. You're working with the bullied, and you're working with the people that are doing the bullying. Wow, what a powerful space to be there and be like, okay, because yeah, wow, it's needed though, right? It's so needed.
Absolutely.
I
And
know
this
we've gone
is,
off on a bit of a tangent, but
yeah,
I'm sorry, but we can. This is it, right? This is where the
yeah.
real work happens.
But this is it. And I think the biggest part of it is taking the judgment out of it. Because, if for example, that person or people that were speaking badly about you to you came up to you a week later and said, you know what, I'm so sorry that that happened. Like, I don't know what got into me. I was jealous, I was overwhelmed, and I created this big saga. The ball would then be in your court to say, okay, well, how do you want to move through that? Because, some people would say, oh, forgive and forget. I don't actually believe in that. I believe that, everyone should be able to do whatever they want to do for themselves. So if in that time and space that felt really not okay, that would be absolutely okay for you to
Mm,
say, one, I don't want to ever be spoken to like that again. That really wasn't okay. And the way that you made me feel and outed me on social media was 1000% disrespectful.
mm,
So I hear your apology. I'm not willing to accept it, but I appreciate the fact that you've come to me about this. And
mm,
that just means that you accept the fact that there is now an equal playing field level there. But in so many different situations, we have to accept an apology we never got, which we know. And in that is where my forgiveness work comes in. So, you know, we don't need to forgive people for how they treated us for them. We need to do it for us.
Yeah.
So, otherwise it's the hot coal analogy. Like it's only us holding that hot coal of resentment and our hands are
Mm,
getting burnt. They've
mm,
done all the things they're going to do. And actually, I very much believe that karma's a real thing.
yeah.
And, we need to hold our own space to that and have that integrity piece, because that's what integrity really is to accept, how are you going to move forward with that? Are we going to
Mm,
keep feeling resentful to people because they might have said a few bad words on a bad day? Now, that's me underplaying it completely. It might have been completely out of line and not okay, but do I want that to keep decaying in my body and making me feel unwell? Or do I want to just release that out and say, no,
mm,
I'm not going to feel like that anymore? And
yeah.
obviously spirituality is a big part of the work that I do, and the full moon's all about releasing. And this week we have another really powerful full moon. So, for anyone that does feel like there's a bully in their life, or, that they've even been a bully in their life, they want to just let go of that, like write that down. Like with this full moon, I
Mm,
release any feelings of lack or feeling sad or feeling angry and projecting that onto other people. All of these things, you can just literally
mm,
fold it away from you, go to a safe space and burn it, or throw it away, or throw it into water, whatever feels good. You can bury it in the ground. It's in Taurus, which obviously I go into more details about. I'm going to do a live on that in my Facebook group. So if anyone wants to join that, the link's again in my bio. But yeah, it's about releasing it for you and forgiving it for you, not for
mm,
them. It doesn't give them anything. They don't get nothing from that. That's for you, because
yeah.
you deserve to feel healthy and whole always. But,
Yeah.
all the time you're holding on to pain and anger, again, like I said, it's only affecting
Oh my
you.
gosh. And we keep it in our bodies. Like
Yeah,
we like it stays until we get rid of it. Like that angsty, horrible feeling. It lives on, right? Until there is that real just getting rid of it. And then it builds up, right? And then it's the anxiety and it's horrible. It makes you feel so unwell, doesn't it? So it is. Yeah, it's not closing the door on it and saying I'm not going to deal with that. Like you said, it's about being vulnerable, turning towards it, and how are you going to rise from this for yourself, not for
yeah,
other people, to make other people feel comfortable or to do what's right for other people. It ultimately has to be, what do I need to do to soothe myself, to look after myself, to move through this and be kind and to love myself like I am a friend of my own self. Yeah.
absolutely. And even on that, exactly that is that when your back's away from it, the light casts a massive shadow, right? And it seems like a big boulder, but when you turn around and face it, it's probably a little rock.
Mm,
And you're like, oh, I held on to that for so long that I could have
mm.
just thrown that away. And exactly that, the body keeps the score. And it physically
Yeah.
manifests in your body as illness. That's
Mm,
what happens. It's a proven thing that, especially people of trauma, childhood trauma, you're 4 times more likely to get cancer in your lifetime. That you're 4 times more likely to get an autoimmune disease. And actually those numbers have gone up now. So, even if you experience childhood trauma, you haven't dealt with it, that's one thing. You experience bullying on top of that, that's another thing. You experience a narcissistic relationship, that's another thing, right?
mm,
Your body can't physically handle it, and that's why it starts to decay from the inside out. So it is all about accepting, releasing, accepting, releasing, accepting, releasing. And obviously, like I said, understanding it first. Like, why did that happen? Why did that person speak that way to me? Why did I think that was okay? Actually, it's all I've ever known. I watched
mm,
my dad treat my mum like that my whole life. I was blissfully unaware that that wasn't
mm,
okay. So then, the reason I went on to be aggressive myself was because I saw my dad do that to my mum and I thought that was okay. That's not me, by the way. I'm using that as an example. But that's why, you see this in unhealthy males. And I say unhealthy males as in unhealthy mentally males.
mm,
They've not had a good male role model. So they've just seen that anger and aggression is the way to win. So then they repeat that. And then, everyone really and truly, men, women, whatever it is, we've all lost that sense of touch with the feminine side, which is the vulnerability piece that I started with. So the minute we can open up and say, I'm really upset about this and I would love to not be upset about it. And I've tried to process it myself, but I'll be honest with you, it still feels really heavy. And then
mm,
someone will just give you a different perspective and you can open up. But what's really important with that part is you tell people you trust. You don't tell everyone you know. You tell a few
Absolutely.
people because too
Mm,
many cooks spoil the broth, and you
yeah,
don't need advice from people
yeah.
that one don't know how to deal with that themselves,
Mm,
and two just people that want to know
yeah.
because they want gossip, right? I
And
think
your emotions and feelings are so sacred. One thing I've learned, is put them in the hands of somewhere trusted because they're so sacred. And when you get that feeling where a friend and your heart's kind of churned out, we don't want that, or do we? We just want like loving hands around the heart. And for it all to
yeah.
feel really nice, we just don't that feeling of you put your trust in the wrong hands for that.
Well, and this is another thing. I think a lot of people, especially young girls, don't realize that their friends are actually bullying them. Like your
Yes,
friends judging you,
interesting.
repeating
Yeah.
your personal information to other people. These
Yeah.
are all forms of bullying. And unfortunately, if
Mm,
you don't say, I really don't appreciate that, don't do that, it's not nice, then they're going to keep doing it. So it is
mm,
about you owning your power. It all comes down to that. And it's hard because I think that people that have been bullied for their whole life, they wonder where their power is, but I promise you it's there. It's just, under everything, under all of the
mm.
the things that you've been told, and it's just so suppressed. And it's just the minute you say to yourself, I don't want to be treated like this again, the universe will open up that door for you so you can free.
Yeah. And there's something really powerful. I remember as a child, people at school, one of them is now my best friend. She was so different and she got picked on at school. And I've never seen someone as strong as she was in just owning who she was, right? She was a raging
Mm,
goth. She really was. And she was actually listening earlier, so she might still be listening now. But and the power that she had because she deep down she knew who she was and she really stood in that. And at the sports day, she ran under the hurdles. She was one of those people, right? But it was just brilliant to see someone that really stood in that authenticity and had those boundaries in place. Like, you're not going to talk to me like that. And that taught me a lesson. And you remember those people from school, don't you? Because it's not someone who's just up for a fight the whole time. Let's have a rumble like all the time. It's someone you don't talk to me like that. You don't treat me like that because
mm,
that's hard at that age, right? To be like,
yeah.
actually, that's not okay. Don't talk to me like that. Even if you are my friend, it's a hard thing to do, but it's a really powerful. And I see that in the young junior coaches that we have that I've had this accountability. I remember a few of our junior coaches when they were like teenagers, like 14, 15, 16, and I'd have been coaching their session. And they would say to me at the end, "Can I have a word fee?" And I thought, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." I love this about them, and now they're coaching for us, and they're incredible. And they'd say, "I didn't like the way that you spoke to us. You didn't make us feel very nice." And I was like, "Whoa, okay, I am sorry about that." And that's not for me to be like, "Oh wow, you're all being naughty." I was like, "You know what? That's not okay." And I really appreciate you standing up and telling me because it takes a lot, right? It takes a
Mm.
lot. I mean, there's a
But
really
it's
safe
so
space that we're
important.
in, but
Yeah.
it's it's at that age, right? Especially to an adult to be like, I didn't, and you can do that.
Yeah.
You can voice just because we're an adult. We are not right all the time, and it does not make. There's no hierarchy in this, right? It's human and human. That's all it is.
Absolutely that. That's exactly what I teach as well. I say it in front of the other teachers as well. Like if you're in a environment where your teacher is speaking to you in a way that you don't want to be spoken to, you can just say, please don't speak to me like that. And that's all it
Yeah,
takes. That's not
yeah.
being
It's
rude. That's asserting your energy and your boundary there. But what's really important there for you as well is that you create a safe enough space for them to be able to do that. And that's a
mm,
really important thing. So that's kudos to you for creating that environment because yeah, not a lot of people do that. So that's a really beautiful thing as well. But yeah, there's so much to that and all of that. I can't even remember my point now, what I was going to say, but I agree.
Thank you, mate. I think it'd be really cool just to wrap things up super
Yeah.
quick. If you had like, first of all, I loved speaking to you. I love speaking to you anyway, all these years later. And it's just really powerful, Sherisse. And what you say is going to be so powerful to the people that listen now, the people that listen back in or whatever. I know we had a few issues with the Instagram live, but I'll be honest, this feels a bit nicer, a bit warmer, a bit more ooh, because you've got like the full landscape going on here. So I've really enjoyed and I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much. If you could have like a handful, five or a few or whatever of like just handy steps, like something's happened, blow up, oh, I feel really sick because that's really hit me. Do you have a few little handy steps that you would say, okay, just to kind of spring to, because this could be
Yeah.
good, like a little takeaway?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you just looked at your phone, someone said something you don't like about yourself there straight away, just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and just sit with it for a moment. First of all, ask yourself, how does this make me feel? So just really identify, how does this actually make me feel? Don't throw random words out. Where in your body can you feel it? If it's
Mm,
in your chest, that might be anxiety. If it's in your stomach, that might be fear. That might be, something that you feel attacked by. Sit with that. Where does that make you
mm,
feel? And then if you feel brave enough to have a look at the comment again and reread it, again, like I said, take it apart. Who is saying that thing, first of all? Is that someone that's got it in for you anyway? Because really and truly, they're just projecting their own thing onto you. If it's someone that doesn't matter, let it go. And what
mm,
I say is, if it doesn't matter in 5 minutes, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it won't matter in 5 minutes, right? So if it is someone that is, your best friend in the world that is fine, it's just turned on you, then that's a reason for it to keep being an issue,
mm,
because that's someone you
mm-hmm.
trust and they've betrayed you.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just random person on the internet
Mm,
that you don't know, let it go.
mm,
And when I say let it go, literally write down on a piece of paper what they said, how you feel about it. Like
mm,
if some random person comments on my TikTok, oh,
mm,
what do you know about this? I can say, well, I had all this trauma and all of these things happened in my life. As a result, I now teach this. No one,
mm,
no one actually says anything back to me after that. They're like, I'm just like, might drop by. But again, you don't have to, if that doesn't feel right to you, as I said, release it out of your body. Write down how you feel, rip it up, throw it
mm.
away, let it
Yeah.
go. If it is something that you feel will need to be addressed, speak to someone that you know really cares about you. So, and sit with that. Who is that person that I trust wholeheartedly? It doesn't have to be the whole best friend group. It can be one person that you just voice note and say, gosh, this has happened. I feel a bit overwhelmed. What should I do about it? Now, you don't actually need to ask for anyone else's advice as well. You can just say, this is how I feel. I need you to sit with this with me.
Mm,
Or if you want advice, ask for advice. Because I
yeah,
think we've come into this age where people give unsolicited advice all the time. I was one of those
for
people. I
sure.
admit that myself. But now I've got into the habit of saying, can you just listen to this? Or if I want advice, I'll say, can I have some advice on this?
Mm,
Everything comes down to crystal clarity, and again, that's a boundary that you set there. So, sit with it. How does it make you feel? Does it matter? If it doesn't, rip it up, let it go. Go and take yourself out of the situation, turn your phone off, go for a walk, watch a film, move your body, do something that's going to get you out of that
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
If it does matter, you share it with someone that you love, and then share it with more people you
Mm,
love if you feel like that is the right way to do it. And again, switch your phone off. Switch it off. Just let whoever you need to know you're
mm,
switching your phone off, but just completely disengage from it. Because
mm,
I promise you now, if you switched your phone off and you wrote down everything it made you feel, absolutely everything, and just closed that book and went to sleep, you would have a clear mind.
mm,
But if you miss out that step of writing all those things down, those thoughts are going to keep churning around in your mind. So you have to just let them all go, right? And if it's in the middle of the day and you can't turn your phone off, then just like I said, figure out, does it matter? Does it not? Is it about you or is it about them? And come back to, I would urge everyone to just do that. That thing I said about the tree and the roots, like the different branches of what makes you
brilliant.
who you are, what makes
Mm,
you strong, what makes you confident, what makes you unique. My saying is, you are the only you there is, and that's your superpower.
mm,
So what is your superpower? It could be kindness, it could be a good listener, it could be all of these things. You're good at maths, you're good at this. These are all of the things that you're good at. So when you have that solid foundation of knowing who you are, you'll read that comment and you'll be like, well, that ain't it, that's not even me, so I don't care. Do you know what I mean? So it's just about coming back to yourself, because ultimately we can never control what anyone else thinks about us. That's not our
Mm,
responsibility. So we could
mm.
spend our whole life being like, oh well, they like blonde girls now, so I'm going to dye all my hair blonde. Or, you know, the in thing now, people are being more liked because they've got a nose piercing, so I'm going to get my nose pierced. You
Yeah,
know, like we could go round in cycles over and over and over
yeah.
again, trying to be what everyone else wants us to be. That is a dead narrative. I promise you now. Coming into astrology as well, we're coming into the age of Aquarius, which is all about individuality. So I promise you, the next 20 years are going to be all about celebrating you, what makes you different, what makes you
Mm.
powerful. And remember, you heard it here first. You know, you're the only you there is,
Heard
and that's your
it first.
superpower. So that part there is the fundamental
Absolutely.
key.
Yes,
You know, it's
yes.
not about them, it's about you. So
Yeah.
really sit with that and just you know, have that compassion for that person. Like, oh wow, poor them. Got nothing else to do but
Mm,
to you know, be sad about it. And what I will say as well is that if it's a actual conversation and you're in a group and people are laughing at something someone said about you, the people laughing are equally part of the problem.
mm.
So, you know,
Brilliant. That's
don't be a
powerful.
friend. Don't
No,
say that they if someone comes after and is like, oh, we're still friends. I'm like, no, you didn't have my back in that scenario. And
no.
that's also for you to call out bad behavior because
Mm.
all you need to say is that's not okay. Or just don't laugh, you know, like if not laughing is actually you saying that I'm not a fan of that. Or just, yeah, you know, like we need to be using our voices for the right reasons now. We as women we were silenced for generations and generations. It's now time to use our voice to stand up for what we think is right and what we want to see more of in the world, because I promise you now 11 to 15-year-old girls and younger, you are the next generation. So if we want more female presidents and you know female ambassadors and presidents and
Mm.
all of these things and prime ministers, we need you to use your voice now for what is
For
good
sure.
and what you don't want to receive. That is just it, period. Like, there's no other way around it. We can't get by on being passive. Passive means nothing, basically. And you know, in life in general, unless you're moving forward to the version that you want to be, you're ultimately going backwards into a cycle because you know we don't no one makes it out of here alive, right? Not one single person. So it's like, am I going to use my superpower for good, or am I going to let it lay dormant and just regret the fact that I didn't try? And I know that's a very heavy statement to make, but it's a real one, you know. And unfortunately for me, I had, you know, 11 members of my family died before the age of 17. So, you know, I can say that statement with absolute wholeheartedness, knowing
Mm.
that, you know, so many of my family didn't make it that far. So it's like,
Mm.
you know, are you going to live for you fully, or are you just going to let life, you know, rule you?
It was really powerful. I was quite moved by that actually. That was very powerful, very needed, and very where we are, right? It's like that age bracket you are working with is it's a hard time to be a teenager, right? I feel it. It's hard, but there's so much movement and progression into the future that we see that we want if we're doing the right things for ourselves, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
having the boundaries, speaking up. Sherisse, it's been so powerful. I know we've had some really lovely comments as well, which is amazing. Yeah, that you know you've enjoyed it, and obviously we will. I don't know what I'm doing with that now. God, technology, don't touch it, Sophie. You'll probably break it. Can you let anyone know that's listening to this, who might listen to the hopefully to the playback as well, how they can follow you, watch your stuff, join your webinars, like how they if it's a school, how can they work with you? Just tell us it all.
Yes, absolutely. So most of the time you can find me on my social media, which is all most of my socials are Sherisse_Bisram. I do have a website called SherisseBisram.com. And like I was saying about my program Permission to Shine, that is currently available to go into schools, and it's 6 weeks, and that's already ready-made program. And I've got all the data to back up the reason why I do these things, because I'm Sherisse Bisram MA. And I have also I will be launching in January Permission to Shine for women. And yes, I have a podcast again with
Yes,
the
who's
same
that?
name,
I love that
Permission to
fire.
Shine.
Listen to Sherisse's podcast. I love
Yes.
it. Every Sunday, you watch me. I'm waiting for it. I'm like, any minute now.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. But all social media platforms, yeah, website, all of the things. And I love a conversation. So if anyone's listening to this thinking that they need to just listen to what I do, because I work with women on a one-to-one basis, and also the programs for the girls. So there's lots of avenues for me, and also delivering workshops and talks and all of the things in between.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to have you back, mate, for the start of next season, like rocket launchers clear into that new season. But I'm sure you'll see a lot of us in and around that anyway. You'll see me because can't get rid of me, can you really? You might have tried, but I'm still here. But thank you so much, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much.